Welcome to the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune. Perryn Keys here with the venerable longtime columnist himself, the man here in the flesh, the celebrity that we all know and love, Scott Rabalais, along with Reed Darcey, one of our LSU beat writers. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing this fine Monday?
Poor Reed. It's like Scott Rabalais. There's all these things, and Reed's here too.
Yeah,
Well,
always,
he's acclaimed in his own right.
He's great. He's great.
always get a great introduction, Rabbit. I like it.
Sorry, guys. We are here on a Monday to discuss several things. The LSU men bounce back, the LSU women bounce back, and several records broken in the PMAC over one weekend. So we will start there, starting with the with the LSU gymnasts who broke a team record, a school record with their score on Friday. So we will start there, but a bit of business, of course. We are here every Monday and Thursday on all our social channels, specifically the LSU Tigers on NOLA.com YouTube channel. So please subscribe there. Please subscribe to The Advocate, of course. Subscribe to The Advocate at theadvocate.com/subscribe, whether that's the print edition or digital edition. Please subscribe to our newsletter, of course. Stay up to date with everything. We've got gymnastics going on, softball coming up soon, baseball coming up soon, men and women's basketball, of course, already underway and getting rolling. And then before you know it, it'll be signing day. The February signing day is actually here on Wednesday. So we'll have maybe a little bit of football to discuss in terms of the LSU football team filling out their roster. So we will have all of that for you. Stay up to date. Get all that delivered to your inbox with the LSU newsletter. Our LSU newsletter is to sign up for the LSU newsletter, go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. And of course, we are here every Monday and Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found, if you did not find us on our YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. Finally, we are brought to you every Monday and Thursday by Champion Wealth Strategies. Champion Wealth Strategies is a national financial services firm specializing in the capital markets, securities, insurance, 401ks, and college and retirement planning. Our broker-dealer is LPL, financial member FINRA, SIPC. As you know, investments are not FDIC insured, may lose value, and have no bank guarantee. To learn more, go to Champion Wealth Strategies and plan like a champion today. So gentlemen, I would like to. It was quite a weekend in the PMAC. Actually, I would like to start off though with the gymnasts. Rab, of course, you've been covering LSU gymnastics for a long time. You've never seen what we saw on Friday. No. There was the LSU gymnast, and if you can, this is going to be difficult, I'm sure, but if you can, and maybe 30 to 60 seconds or less, just discuss how big a deal this was. LSU scores a 198.475. That is a school record, in their win against Arkansas on Friday. And just sort of, can you just sort of lay that out for us, what that means, and then, of course, what you saw on Friday in the PMAC?
Yeah, well, it was a school record. More importantly, probably is the best score in the country so far this season.
That's right. Yeah,
and so that you always get a little better scoring at home, but they really performed well, and they coming off a meet where they didn't have a horrible score at Missouri. They lost the meet by 1/10 of a point. They had a 197.225, which is okay, but this LSU team, they should be doing 197.5, 197.6 at the minimum every meet. They're that talented.
Just to reset everything, is this the most talented LSU team, gymnastics team you've seen?
At least since 2017, which was like Ashley Natt and Maya Hambrick and Sarah Finnegan and Lexi Priestman. Mm-hmm. It's on par with that, if not better. Mm-hmm. They're very good, very deep, very experienced. And if they can avoid the injuries, they can.
It's fair to say that they shouldn't not just be in the Final Four, but they could finish number one.
Yeah, you throw a 198.475 up there, and this is a second score over 198, which is when you're doing over 198, that's really the elite scores in the country. There've only been 7 teams that go over 198 so far this season, so it doesn't happen every week. So it's really, it really sends a statement, I think, right, that they can compete with Oklahoma, who's everyone's chasing. They're the 2-time reigning national champions. But they've improved on the Missouri score a lot, and they built on every event. They went from vault to bars to beam to floor. Every score was a little bit better, culminating with a school record tying score on floor and another 10 from Haleigh Bryant. And so it was an impressive performance, and it's what this team is capable of. They're very talented, very experienced, very deep, and it's exciting to think where they could go from here.
A 49.775 on floor, as you said. That was that tied a school record.
Yes.
And Haleigh Bryant with a perfect 10. That is her 12th career perfect 10, if I'm not mistaken.
And she's starting to get into rare air. The NCAA has a list of the all-time 10s, and 28 is the record. So she's not going to get there. If
That's
not just as she comes back next year, which
Yeah.
she might, but she's a fourth-year senior right now. But she has a chance to wind up in the top 10 among people with in terms of perfect 10s, and she's already 7th in LSU history with 69 wins. She's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
So
they have about about 2 months, a little less than 2 months to go in their season. Well, let's back up just a little bit. What has been sort of the most pleasant surprise, the most interesting thing you've seen out of the LSU gymnasts this season? And then just sort of reset whatever they've got moving forward and what you think is capable and possible for them.
Well, Bryant's been Bryant. But I guess seeing Kaya Johnson come back from the devastating Achilles injury she had last January. She tore her Achilles, had to have surgery, missed the whole season, decided to come back for her 5th year. That's been really that's been really impressive. She's had a 10 on floor. She's had some great performances. Won the all-around title at Missouri, for example. Done some very good things, and it makes quite a 1-2 punch with her and Bryant.
Yeah.
And then if I may add to her, Connor McLean, the freshman, who, as I may have said before, won the 2022 U.S. National All-Around title. This is the title that Simone Biles won last year when Connor didn't compete. She's a dark horse for the Olympic team this year, and she's had 2 10s already, and she had 2 9.975s Friday. And she was as Jay Clark has said, her ceiling is unlimited. Really, she could be better than Haleigh Bryant eventually. She's a little hit and miss right now, but when she's on, she's as good as anybody.
So when you combine, the veterans, the Haleys and the Kayas with that young talent, you've got
her and Amari Drayton, who's had some very good scores.
You've got a real special, unique collection of talent that doesn't really come around very often. I think it was telling. I believe it was in the meet that Kaya had her 10 on the floor against Kentucky. It was the earliest 198 that an SEC team has had in a season so far. So that's a good sign. That's telling that they're hitting their stride early on, because you usually don't see those high scores that early in the season, especially setting a program record about halfway through the season. So it's a good sign that they're rounding into form and that they don't have to build themselves up into this form later in the season. They're already hitting their stride right now, which I think is a great sign.
Good point.
The LSU gymnasts will be in Georgia this weekend before they hit the rest of their schedule.
A real quick note: if we moved on to the sport, the SEC Championships is in New Orleans this year at the Smoothie King Center, and I got an email this morning. Tickets go on sale tomorrow for that event. So
it's quite a show. It really is.
It is. It's 2 sessions. There's 8 teams all together, and they will have this is the last year. It's a 1-day event with Oklahoma coming next year. It's going to be start being a 2-day event. So this is LSU had a record crowd. Well, they had a record crowd the last time I was there in 2019, over 10,000 fans. So I expect they're going to have a good crowd again this year.
So, shifting gears to from one record-breaking night on Friday to another one on Sunday, the LSU women blow away Florida 106-66. That's the most. That's the highest point total for an LSU team, for an LSU women's team against an SEC opponent. LSU, it was a big turnaround from three-point range. They shoot 47% from three-point range, 49% from the field overall. And they hold Florida to 35.3% shooting, which was quite an improvement from the previous 2 games. LSU coming off back-to-back losses against South Carolina and Mississippi State. Reed, just reset everything for you for us, if you would, just in terms of what you saw on Sunday and what had to have been a reassuring victory for LSU.
Yeah, biggest takeaway in my eyes was Hailey Van Lith and how she played. Season high, 21 points. But she sort of said after the game that the points didn't really matter to her as much as the 10 free throws she attempted, the 6 or 7 rebounds she got, and her 2 steals. She thought those 3 numbers really showed to her that she was playing like herself. Mm-hmm. And she said after the game, she said, I decided to be myself tonight, which I thought was pretty telling. In terms of
very interesting quote.
It was a very interesting quote because it sort of implies that she hasn't felt like herself lately.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's looking at her, watching her play, that was sort of obvious. Like she wasn't putting up the numbers that we were used to her seeing when she was at Louisville. And she wasn't, she didn't have that edge to her. She didn't have that energy, that how do I put it? That moxie, I guess, that we usually see from her. So I think, you saw her be aggressive. You saw her be decisive. You saw her look for her shot. You saw her play good defense. You saw her really, like she said, playing like herself. And so I think this whole time, there have been questions, is this the right fit? Is she playing the right position? Is Mulkey's system a right fit for her? And those questions have been fair. But I think if you ask Kim Mulkey after the game, the way she sort of said like, Haleigh, you need to stop worrying about what other people think. You need to stop worrying about pleasing everybody.
I thought that was an interesting exchange.
Yeah,
very telling exchange.
It was for me too, because I've always thought that Haleigh, this whole season, she's been trying to fit into the system, when in reality, LSU needs her at some stretches to be the system herself, because she's capable. She's talented enough and experienced enough to carry the offense through certain stretches. And I think, we've seen glimpses of that, but we haven't seen it consistently. And so maybe after yesterday against Florida, maybe she can start stringing together some consistent performances.
I was the other thing, obviously, is that we mentioned on the previous podcast, Reed, that, of course, Kim Mulkey has, she has, what's the word I'm looking for? Her calling card for years and years and years as a coach has been defense. Defense first, and then you worry about offense second. And of course, they hold now. I grant you, this is not a vintage Florida women's basketball team that came in here, but the fact of the matter, and they were coming off 2 very, very difficult games. LSU was, the loss to South Carolina, followed by the loss having to go to Starkville, and of course that wound up being another defeat as well. One way or the other, no matter how you slice it, though, is that they held Florida to way below 40% shooting on the day. I have to assume that was something that was very encouraging for Kim Mulkey and really for the rest of the team.
She made a point of mentioning that after the game.
Yes.
35.5%.
Yes.
Yeah, every game she wants to hold the opponent under 40% shooting. They haven't done it in a while. Yesterday was the first time they did it in a few games. It is how they play. They use their defense to set up their offense. Their offense is best when it's attacking in transition, and you can't attack in transition unless you get a stop on the defensive end. So that's the foundation of what they do. They play their offense. Everything sort of clicks for them when they can run out in transition and start fast breaks. So that starts with the defensive end of the floor, and they were really good yesterday against Florida.
The other thing that I did want to mention, of course, we talked extensively actually the past 2 podcasts about the LSU bench being shorter by definition, having lost Kateri Poole and Samaya Smith. On Sunday, LSU got quite a few minutes out of last tier Poa. They got quite a few minutes out of Del Rosario has been giving them a fair amount of minutes as well, but they were able to lengthen that bench a little bit. Just as you say, Hailey Van Lith played a great game, but did not have to play 30-plus minutes in that game as well. What does that bode well for the LSU women going down the road in terms of being able to trust their bench?
Yes, I think it's really important for them to get good, solid, trustworthy production from last year POA, because I think you saw a slight change yesterday in Kim Mulkey's rotations. We saw POA play more, and we saw her play more with Hailey Van Lith than what we've been accustomed to seeing. And POA played really well. She did a good job of setting up the offense, attacking the rim. She made a few trips to the free throw line, dished out a few assists. She played really well, and she allowed Hailey to play that off the ball role that she's more accustomed to playing.
Right.
And a lot of her buckets came, when she was sharing the floor with POA and she was that off guard. So if LSU can get that kind of play from Poa, then it allows them to sort of unlock a more comfortable, confident version of Hailey Van Lith. So I think in the next few games, we're going to see Mulkey experiment more with playing Poa more
I think
minutes.
Poa played 26 minutes yesterday. She
Yeah,
played a
something
lot.
like
I mean,
that.
of course,
Yeah,
they're blowing out their opponents, so that lets them go to the bench more. But I hope it's not hyperbole to say, but I was sitting there yesterday thinking the key to their postseason hopes may be last tier Poa of all the players.
Sure.
Because if she can come in there, like Reed said, she can play along Haleigh, and Haleigh can play the two where she's more comfortable. And of course, you have Michaela Williams, who played point guard in high school.
Yeah.
She can bring the ball up court as well. And it gives her a lot more rotations. The part of the thing, I think, they get a little fatigued late in the games because they're playing so many minutes.
That's right.
The starting five. The starting five is great, but you can't play all the time, and that's certainly the strength of a South Carolina team that they're so deep. But if Poa can get in there and give them meaningful minutes, and Kim or one of the other, I think Kim said yesterday, get Poa to be Poa, and is she an All-American? No, but she's a
Doesn't mean she can't give a good 20
tremendous
minutes.
role player,
Sure.
and that could just be the thing that just ticks them over to the next level and makes them a team that can make another deep run in the postseason. I think it's been fascinating to watch and will continue to be as they go down the stretch of this season.
This is the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. You know where to find all our writers' great work. That's at The Advocate. Please, at theadvocate.com. Please subscribe, whether that's the print edition, digital edition. And stay up to date with everything LSU related with our LSU newsletter, of course. We've got pretty much everything going on right now, including football. If you're thinking about signing day, the late signing period, which will not be nearly as eventful as the early signing period, as we all know these days. But nonetheless, it's coming. There will be more comings and goings for the LSU football team as well, surely. LSU baseball is about to begin, LSU softball. Men's and women's basketball, obviously, quite underway, and gymnastics as well. So stay up to date with everything. Get the LSU newsletter delivered to your inbox, to your phone, to your desktop. To do that, you can sign up at theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here every Monday and Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. But more importantly, we are here every Monday and Thursday on all our social channels, specifically our LSU on NOLA. Excuse me. Let me try this again. We are here on all our social channels, specifically our YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. If you can catch us live there, please do. If you don't catch us live there, you can catch us after the fact on all those same channels. Again, specifically the LSU Tigers on NOLA.com YouTube channel. Again, if you don't find us there, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and other fine podcast formats. We are brought to you every Monday and Thursday by Champion Wealth Strategies. To learn more, go to championwealthstrategies.com and plan like a champion today. So one more thing, obviously the LSU women, they will haul off to Nashville and try to handle the Vanderbilt women on Thursday night, 8 p.m. tip. Reed, what are you looking for out of that game?
Vanderbilt's a solid team. They started off really strong. They started off SEC play really strong, but they've sort of come back down to earth a little bit. But they're still ranked 53rd, I believe, in the net, which is really respectable. So it's again, when LSU goes on the road, they attract a huge crowd. So I expect there to be a big crowd at Vanderbilt. That's a tough place to play because the bench is on the baseline, and that gym doesn't have air conditioning. As I learned last year, I'm looking to see. The main thing I'll be looking for is how does Mulkey sort of figure out that guard rotation, and does Poa play 20+ minutes, or does it get to a close game to the point where she has to keep the starters out on the floor for extended stretches of time? Because like Rap mentioned, playing Poa, it sort of solves two problems for you. It solves the problem of Haleigh getting more time off the ball, and it sort of gives more relief to the other guards like Flau'jae Johnson and Michaela Williams, so that they don't have to play 35+ minutes a game, and they can be fresher down the stretch if it comes down to a close game in a few possessions.
And I think we'd be remiss with that. We've talked about the guards, and it's really important, but what it does for the post players. Anissa Morrow had a tremendous game yesterday, 18 and 20.
Yes.
And then Angel Reese led the team in assists yesterday. And Mulkey made a good point, kind of unsolicited. She said, teams were just sagging on Angel all the time. They learned last season. They're not doing that as much this year. They
can't afford to.
Yeah, because if she can kick it out to Michaela Williams or Haleigh and they can hit an outside jumper, then you're like, then what do you do? Then it becomes pick your poison against this LSU team.
Right.
If you can get all that going, it's all got to work together. And if it does, it can be very formidable.
Got to stay healthy, and they got to continue
sure.
to try to develop their bench a little bit. Janae Kent had 12 minutes thereabouts, I think, last
around
Sunday. So
that,
that was a nice development as well. The LSU men did not break records on Saturday, but they did snap a 3-game losing streak. Will Baker, 25 points. Jalen Cook, 20 points. Rab, you were there. You saw it all. What was the most pleasant surprise or most pleasant development out of the LSU men's victory over Arkansas on Saturday?
A great offensive production, finishing offensively. That's been part of their problem in these games. Is especially around the rim, they just can't finish around the rim. And Saturday they were doing well inside. They were hitting outside shots. And obviously, when you score that many points, it's going to be you're doing a lot of things are going well for you. But it's been. Not to sound like a fan, but it's been frustrating to watch them play because you got two really big guys inside with Baker and
you would think you'd have more muscle.
Yeah, and they just made like a third of their shots around the rim in some of these losses. So the Georgia game, really one that slipped away that they should have had. But hey, a good confidence booster for them. Because they're really going to need it because they are facing a toughest
that is
stretch of the
yes.
year.
It was nice to see them. They shot 55% from the floor, and I believe something like 52% from 3-point range, which was certainly a welcome change. This was not, as you mentioned, Arkansas is not. This is not a vintage.
No, not the team that went to the Elite Eight.
No. They're struggling this year. And now this is going to be the toughest stretch probably of the season for LSU. They go to Tennessee,
number 6 in the net,
number 6 NET rating. They travel to Alabama.
Alabama comes here. They went to Alabama.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Alabama comes here, and Alabama's got a 5 NET rating, and obviously took it to them in Tuscaloosa. Just recently, and then they go to Florida. That's the so-called breather out of these 3 teams, and they've got a 36 NET rating. And I wouldn't bank on that as being anything as particularly as what you might call an easy game.
Florida's on the bubble.
Yeah,
this morning they're the first 4 out.
Right, going over to Gainesville to play that game. Any thoughts on that? Just what do you? I mean, I would have to say, Rab, that if you were following that team. You say if you go 1-2, considering where the LSU men are right now, and they're getting better, I think. I think that's fair to say. They're 4-4 in conference, and frankly, we weren't sure if they were gonna hover around 500 in conference play this season. But wouldn't you say that if they were to go 1-2 over the next 3 games, you'd feel pretty good about that? Would you not?
Yeah, this is tough, and Alabama just seems to have their number. Like Alabama's leading the SEC. Once again, I don't think LSU can beat Alabama with 2 teams of players on the court. Quite honestly,
Alabama doesn't let up either.
No,
they just keep going.
If they're hitting those threes like they were in Tuscaloosa, it's like it's just have to move on to the next game. Yeah, one game. You don't want to think that way. You want to think you can win all of them. And then like teams have been susceptible to upsets in the SEC. I don't think there's any super great team in the SEC this year. It's not like the Connecticut men look like they're really good again, coming off the national championship. But or Purdue maybe in the Big Ten. But you think they got to win one of these games where they're not supposed to win.
Yeah,
and that we haven't seen from them.
That would be a sign of significant improvement, don't you think?
Yeah, you got to sneak up and win one of these games. If you could win at Tennessee or the Florida game, they'll certainly be an underdog in that game. And then to go beyond these next 3, they're at South Carolina, who's tied for 2nd in the league, who's having a surprising year under their second-year coach. And then you come home and play Kentucky, which can be had, but again, Kentucky's
Kentucky.
They're probably the most purely talented team in the SEC yet again. So it's a rough stretch. I mean, if you can go 2-3 in this next 5 games, 1-3, and then
cartwheels.
Yeah, you'll be doing okay because the schedule kind of lets up as far as the SEC goes. Kind of lets up after that.
Give the ball players and the coach Matt McMahon credit, I think, because I do think they're playing hard. It doesn't seem as though they've obviously got the talent to compete with the big boys, with the top tier of the SEC level, but they do play hard for their coach, isn't that? Don't you think?
I think they've given effort in every game. We saw it at Auburn. They got way behind, like 28 points, and then they cut it to. They didn't quit. They cut it to single digits, and they ended up losing the game. But it was still, that's a very tough place to win, and they didn't give up in a hostile environment. I think improvement is being made. It's certainly probably not to the point that is suiting a lot of LSU fans. Who especially those holding a candle for Will Wade, he's not coming back, folks. He's not coming back. But it's progress being made. Look, they only won 2 SEC games last year.
That's right.
And there's more pieces. I've heard Damian Fishback say this on one of the broadcasts on the SEC network. He said they've got more pieces. They've got some depth, especially with Jalen Cook coming. They've got height inside. They could use like 2 more players.
Yes.
And that's easy to say, but still a long way away. 2 more scores. Yeah. I like everyone says Matt McMahon's a good coach. I talked to Seth Greenberg at SEC Media Days last year, and he's like, that guy is a really well-respected coach. And I think a lot of people here don't see that, or they're certainly not seeing the results so far. I know it's not what anyone wants to hear, especially when you see Kim Mulkey win a national title in year 2 and Jay Johnson win a national title year 2 and Brian Kelly, done what he's done in his first 2 years. But you're going to have to give this guy some time because there's no choice.
Look, it's easy to forget this, but I mean, he really was basically starting at 0. I mean, you remember that
everyone left.
Yes, everybody left. They had nothing but walk-ons left on that roster.
I think he started less than 0. Like he really that program was in really tough shape when he took over, and he didn't have a whole lot of time to fix it right away. And I think that's what led to last year, which was so bad. But just give him credit. He added a couple freshmen, went to the portal, added some solid guys in the portal, and he improved the program. And the product that they're putting out is a hell of a lot better than it was last year. So you got to take building blocks and building steps.
It's also easy to forget.
Overnight.
That's right. It's also easy to forget that he couldn't really, because we didn't know what the NCAA was going to rule in terms of what kind of penalties they were going to have and sanctions and scholarship limits. There wasn't a whole lot he could promise to recruits that first year as well either. So. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair, you're continuing to see progress. And yes, you're going to want to see them take that next step, whether that's later this year or next season or whatever. But it's certainly, as you said, Reed, it's a whole hell of a lot better than it was last year. We'll see what happens then. Anything else you guys feel is noteworthy before we close it out and call it a podcast?
Like you mentioned, the second National Signing Day is this week.
Yes.
And LSU's trying to land a 5-star Terry Bussey.
From East Texas.
I want to say young Bussey. The LSU had a great player in the 1930s. This is how old I am. Like Perryn points out.
You're showing your age.
Young Bussey was a great player for LSU, an all-SEC player back in the 30s, a halfback, I think. and so I want to say that every time. But he's a 5-star that they've been trying to lure away from Texas A&M. Everybody was wringing their hands about their recruiting class. On3, which has become maybe the new standard for recruiting websites, they do a composite of all the national sites, Rivals and ESPN, and they have their own ranking. LSU's number 3. Their class is number 3 in the country in just On3's own rankings.
That's pretty salty.
That's without Bussey.
That's without Bussey so far. That's adding McKinley and adding a couple other players, and they might get a couple more transfers because obviously they still have needs on the D line, especially. But it's been a much better recruiting year than people have thought it was going to be.
It's not an issue of they might get a couple of more transfers. They're going to have to get a couple of more transfers. They're going to have to, as we mentioned in the previous podcast, they're going to have to sort of, quote unquote, manage that roster as well because we think they've got probably 88, 89 scholarship players right now. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to do a
problem else you hadn't had for a couple of years.
That is very much the case. Yeah. But they're going to have to sort of whittle that down in addition to bringing on some defensive tackles at the very, very least. So.
Yeah. And while we're here, can we talk a little bit about baseball?
Of course.
Yeah, I thought Rab, your column from Media Day on theadvocate.com was pretty good. It just did a good job of sort of capturing Jay Johnson and his psyche, and how he sort of eats, sleeps, and breathes, college baseball. And I thought it was telling, just seeing like how he sort of went from winning the World Series and then the next steps, and he was out recruiting, as they were in the process of trying to win the World Series.
Pretty much ASAP.
From Alabama. Yeah. He was going to see Luke Holman 3 days after getting home from Omaha.
Yeah, so it doesn't really stop for him, and I think LSU fans can appreciate the hard work and the time he puts into the program.
Bet on it. If we're talking about Luke,
That was a story.
Oh, it's
boy,
something
15
of a story.
years. 15
Yeah.
year penalty.
At some point, maybe we can catch up on Alabama baseball and the mess that those guys have found themselves in, particularly Brad Bohannon. Excuse me. But we will leave it here for now. We will be back here on Thursday, presumably to have wrapped up the late signing day period for LSU football. We will also discuss, obviously, a little bit more basketball as well. Gymnastics coming up yet again. And so we will be here for all of it. And all things LSU related. Of course, for all things LSU related, there's only been one place over the years to go. That's to The Advocate. And so with that in mind, please sign up. Please subscribe to The Advocate. You do that by going to theadvocate.com/subscribe. You stay up to date with all of the LSU sporting news by signing up for the LSU newsletter. To do that, you go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here every Monday and Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. But of course, we are here on all our social channels as well. We are here live on our YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. Please subscribe there. If you don't catch us live, you can catch us after the fact on that same YouTube channel. We are brought to you every Monday and Thursday, of course, by Champion Wealth Strategies. To learn more, please go to championwealthstrategies.com and plan like a champion today. Gentlemen, it's been quite a weekend. We are here to get into this week, and we are here to get ourselves into some trouble, maybe, covering LSU as always.
It's only going to get busier with baseball
exactly
and
right.
softball starting.
For Reed Darcey, for Scott Rabalais, for Robert Young behind the glass, my name is Perryn Keys. This has been the LSU Sports Insider.